One of my students talk about her difficulty being a single parent and that whole idea of having enough time to meet her own needs. And that reminds me of an issue that we had touched on right before the break, which was the idea of maybe filling a social void with your children. I was wondering if there was ever a tendency to do that, particularly when you first became a single parent, maybe finding yourself them becoming your playmates. I mean, going to movies together and instead of with other adults. Did that ever come up?
I don't know, Mary, that I was filling a particular social void because I was unaware that I had a need for that at the time. I was so grateful to be out of the relationship. Out of an obligation to meet her needs, I think perhaps I overdid too much socializing at a 7 or a 4 or a 5-year-old level. And it's only just recently that I've been able to break free from that and claim time for myself. But I think what it did in spending the first couple of years with her and providing for her, it gave her enough confidence that now she's perfectly comfortable if Mommy wants to have a boyfriend.
Ah, okay.
And we're open enough with one another, where previously she expressed concern and she did not and was adamant about it. She is very open to the idea now. And I have gone out, and she is very comfortable with it.
Okay. So sort of laying kind of a security groundwork for her, knowing that just because you go out doesn't mean you're not coming back.
Correct.
Yeah. How about you, Bill? Did you find yourself socializing with the boys?
Yeah, it's hard not to do. I mean, you're on your free time, they're always there. And for me, especially initially before I had a lot of, a network of people to help me watch, do the help with the babysitting and stuff. I brought them everywhere I went, and I don't know if it was a social void, but they were always there, and it made things harder, not to have time by myself, and it took some adjusting to where now, I have time by myself and stuff. But I think initially it's hard not to do it otherwise.
Yeah. Well, and both of you, I imagine, are at such a level of need at that point.
Mm-hmm. And I think that you try and find some kind of balance with it. And I'm aware that Bill is a student, and I was a full-time or part-time student, full-time employee at the time I became single. And trying to juggle the needs, your own needs, working, being a student, and the needs of your child, that you kind of just fill those slots with going to the movies can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. You do it.
Okay. Okay. So part of it becomes you become excellent strategists and kind of planners. Okay. Let's take a look at some things we can do or don't in terms of taking care of yourself, since we're leading off into this. Let's see. Don't waste time regretting failures and feeling guilty about things you do or don't have. Give up rescue fantasies. Do pat yourself on the back. Don't attribute every crisis or problem your family faces to single parenthood. Do relish your independence. And do keep a determined focus on making yourself the best person you can be. Let's take a look at that first one in terms of looking at what you do and don't have. I would imagine some of the fear involved in becoming a single parent would have a tendency to, at times, focus you on, will I be able to do this? Am I going to be able to provide? That sort of thing. I mean, was that your experience initially? Even now? I don't know.
Well, of course, going into something like this, there's got to be that fear, And for me, I do rely on a small amount of AFDC for my children because I don't get child support, and I work and I go to school, and so there's, relying on the government, you never know what's going to come next. All of a sudden you're going to be cut off. I guess it's kind of like relying on somebody that's not very reliable to pay child support too.
Yeah, it sounds familiar, doesn't it?
But, you just deal with it. And I think it's, just part of life, and you're happy for what you have, and you're happy for today.
Okay. So sort of staying on that focus of, okay, well, for today, my rent is paid, I have food in my house, I have gas in my car, the boys are fine, everybody's healthy for today. And being able to be at peace with that and not spending a whole lot of time thinking about what about tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. Has that been pretty key to your sanity also?
Very much so. I think one of the things that helped the most, Mary, is the fact that I knew I had the ability to do it, and going to school would make things easier in the future. So it was a little bit easier to accept the poverty and the not having. I don't receive child support myself, so all that Brooke Ann and I've been able to do has been through my income. Women in this valley do not earn as much money as men do, and I found it very difficult. But yes, a lot of resentment, and I had to let go of that also for the lack of child support. And I try and teach my daughter values that are going to, when she does grow up, that she may not just fall into these same pitfalls that I have.
Yeah. Well, that's part of that looking at kind of the generational impact of receiving support from a single parent. And yet, when they look at studies, often children wind up very resilient from committed parents. I mean, even if there's one parent in the home, a committed parent is, I think, very, very important, as opposed to maybe having two parents in the house who are never emotionally there. So it's sort of that not focusing on, well, what if we were Ozzie and Harriet, whose children grew up to be alcoholics. I'll just mention that. Okay. This idea of patting on the back, making sure you give yourself credit for what you do. I mean, do you do that? Do you put any energy into identifying your successes as a parent?
Well, sure, you have to, I wouldn't say I overdo it, but yeah, my kids are really doing well in school, and they're very smart, and they're 7 and 9, and they can beat me at chess, Okay. I mean, they're doing really well and healthy, and yeah, I look at them and I say, I'm doing a good job.
Good for you.
I'm not perfect, but yeah, I'd say I do that. It's important.
Good for you. Good for you. And I'm sure the idea of having supportive people around you who maybe when you do get discouraged, who can point out the successes your children are having and successes you make as a parent, I'm sure is important.
Like when I pick my kids up from daycare, I know the lady in charge of the daycare, she's always telling me what great parents she thinks I have, and that stuff helps.
It does
really
help,
does.
huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, to have somebody else see what you're doing. Yeah.
I've been very, very lucky because I don't know if Brooke Ann's personality is a result of my parenting or simply God-given, but she's a wonderful child, and she's very easy to parent, and she's very well adjusted. So being a parent for her it's a pleasure. It's not a chore.
Yeah.
And I don't have too many negatives that I have to look at.
Good for you. Good for you. Let's take a look at the next part of our list here in terms of things we can do to take care of ourselves. Making a daily determined effort to nurture your physical, emotional, and spiritual needs. Don't let stress rule your life. Don't limit your support group to other single-parent families, and don't give in to your child's every whim. Okay, so in terms of nurturing yourself at a spiritual, emotional, physical level, it sounds like not only do you need to be excellent parents for your children, but parents for yourself. That those same parenting skills have to apply to you almost first, I would think. Because if you're not taken care of, it would be hard to parent, I would think.
I do things that take care of me and nurture me, and one of them is that hiding in the bathroom I told you about. But I spend a half an hour in the morning, quiet time, before the household wakes up, just for myself. And it's peaceful, it's quiet, I can plan my day, and I have absolutely no distraction. Okay. One of the things that I did have to learn to do for myself, Mary, is find that timeouts or grounding a child as a form of consequences does not work for a single parent. Because if you ground them, you've grounded yourself to make sure that they do it. And I had to come up with some other strategies in order to discipline and set limits for my child.
Okay. Yes, so sort of looking at, well, whatever happens to them is going to affect you, isn't it?
I was tired of being punished when she had to do a timeout or be grounded for the weekend.
Okay. Which reminds me of one of these on the list, not giving in to your child's every whim. I mean, I wonder if there's ever a temptation to maybe want to be more indulgent with your children to sort of address the fact that there's not another parent in the house. I mean, does that ever come up?
Oh, I know I do quite a bit, and the thing is that I find myself paying for it later. It's easy to, okay, pick out a candy here, and then just whatever they want, if I have the means to do it. And then what purpose is an allowance? They spend it all the very first 5 minutes they got it because they know they're going to get what they want from Dad the rest of the week. I'm learning to pull in the reins, say no. I got to. I mean, it's for their own good. so they learn responsibility, and that's not reality, that's not life. They don't get whatever they want, whenever they want.
Yeah.
And yeah, you do tend to overcompensate because you're the only parent, and
Yeah.
I think it's natural.
Yeah. Well, and it's, go ahead. Did you start to say
I'm
something?
just agreeing with Bill. I found that I did the same thing, and the overcompensation and paying for it later.
Okay.
And I think all single parents, but even parents that are two in a relationship, are going to do that. And you do a lot of parenting trial and error.
Yeah.
And the survival key is try it, and if it didn't work, then you try another thing.
Right. And then you do something else
Right.
instead of doing something that doesn't work over and over and over again.
And don't beat yourself up too badly when it doesn't work.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not like, I mean, this idea here about not letting stress rule your life. I mean, I can imagine that, again, when you say you pay for it later, I'm sure part of what you pay for it with is stress level. In terms of, okay, now I have to address the consequences of this. Yeah.
Of a child throwing a fit in the store because they didn't get
Yeah.
the thing they want.
That's right. Do you find yourself as a single parent when your child publicly throws a fit or something? Do you find yourself ever maybe more overly sensitive to other people's evaluations? I don't know. That just suddenly struck me. That sort of like, particularly I was thinking of as a dad. It's sort of like, okay, I'm a single dad. I'm sorry. It's like,
I think maybe, when you're in the store, that you're all of a sudden aware that everybody knows that you're the only parent because you're the man, and you're in the store with your children, and they're behaving a certain way, and the way you talk to them, you feel like people are, understanding that you're the only parent,
Right.
and it does. I guess in some level it impacts what you say and how you act and how you feel.
yeah, I'm sure it does. Sure does. Well, now that I've created some hypersensitivity for both of you, we do need to close. But I want to thank you so much for coming and sharing some of your reality. And in general, it sounds fairly hopeful to me. This thing is doable. And it takes some energy, it sounds like.
Yes,
But for your experience so far, it seems to have been worth it for you.
very much
Yeah.
so.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining us. Tune in over the next few weeks. We'll look at violent men. I'm Mary Crocker Cook. Good night.
For topic suggestions, write to Bay Area Psychology at 1723